So I'm going to work on a color wheel just to give you a little bit of background about how to use color and why we use certain color combinations either in art or design. I find that I have a lot of students that really have a lot of questions about how to use color. And a lot of people, because you can buy kits that have like all these different colors in it, people will use those colors and they never really mix their own colors, so they don't know what makes a color. So the first thing that I always teach new students is a little bit of color theory, and I'm just going to do a little sample of it here. But this is just going to give you a little bit of background, and you don't have to create a color wheel. Usually I have my students who are art students create a color wheel, but if you're interested in learning more about color for just design's sake, then I'll post the color wheel so that you'll have access to it. You don't have to necessarily make one. But for my art students, I do recommend that you make a color wheel and you make it in the medium that you're going to be using. So it's good if you have kind of a book that you use, like a sketchbook, or you could just get like a watercolor pad or pastel pad, or just even some Bristol paper, and do your practices in there so that you get used to using your materials, you get used to mixing your materials, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and start here with my color wheel. So you have 12 different circles in your main color wheel. What I usually do when I create them, so you can either make it so that like they're a shape of a pie. This time I decided to do something different because I'm going to write some things in between these. And then after I have my 12 circles, I usually kind of write a little letter inside them so I remember what color needs to go into it, because sometimes I get distracted and I don't end up doing what I need to do. All right, so for this first one, I need to pick, I started up here with the color red. So I'm just gonna get my red really wet here. I'm using watercolor, but you can use anything really. And I'm just gonna watercolor in the red in my circle. I have had a lot of students who've asked me, what is the point of doing a color wheel? And the main point is because it's the beginning of learning how to mix colors, to understand how colors work together, and helps you get used to the medium that you're going to be using. This isn't very dark, so I might come and make it a little darker. Let's let it dry and add more. All right. Here. So rather than working around the circle in any direction, what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the primary colors first. And primary colors basically are colors that you can't mix to make. They're the main colors that all color comes from. So the next one I'm going to do here is going to be yellow. My yellow is right here. It's really important for artists to study color theory. So if you've never had a color theory class, it's worth taking the time to learn more about. The next color I need is blue. And if you have a kit that has like all the colors in it, what you want to do is you want to find like the truest blue and the truest red and the truest yellow. So you want to try to find one that doesn't look like it's tainted by another color. And I'll explain that in just a minute when I get to these other ones. So our next primary color is blue. Now, if you are just interested in color for design, The reason why this is important is because even if you're picking like a white paint for your room or for somebody's house, all white paints have a little bit of undertone of something in them. They either have warm tones or cool tones. And in this exercise, I'm not going to get into those too much because this is just like a quick little video for you. Okay, so these are our primary colors. I'm going to go ahead and just draw some lines here. So again, primary colors are what color comes from. Okay, so those are our primaries. Secondary colors are colors that are made by mixing two primary colors. Now, rather than, if you have a kit when you're learning to make color, rather than, so if you mixed yellow and red, you get orange. But I'm not going to go to the orange here. You need to learn how to make an orange so that you know how much of each color is kind of going into it. That's how you learn color theory. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this lighter color here, and on the side I'm going to mix the two primaries that I'm going to use to make orange. Okay, and you want to do a little bit of extra if you can, because you're going to need to mix from that color in a minute. So first you take the lighter color because it's easier to get darker than it is to get lighter. So then I'm going to come in, I'm going to take a little bit of the red and I'm going to mix it with that yellow that I took. And I'm going to make my own orange. And then I'll come in and I'll paint my orange. Actually, that needs a little bit more yellow. And it's good for you to start to see when you mix the colors, you know, what exactly, like if you start to mix a little bit of red in it, it becomes too red. If you mix too much yellow in it, it becomes too yellow. I might come back in and make this darker later, but for our purposes, that works. Okay, our next secondary color is if you mix yellow and blue. So I'm going to take a bit of yellow. And I'm going to take a little bit of blue. Get my green. And then I'm going to mix red and blue. So when you mix red and blue, you want to do the red first. Red is the lighter of the two colors. Now, when you do these, it's not like you mix half blue and half red. You kind of have to keep mixing it until you get it just right. Okay, so when you mix red and blue, you get violet. And let me just go ahead and grab a marker here so I can do kind of a second color. So when you mix primary colors, you get secondary colors. Okay, so our secondary colors are violet, green, and orange. Now the next set are called tertiary colors, and tertiary colors are made by mixing a primary and a secondary color. So I have a little bit of my orange already mixed. I'm going to set it aside, and I'm going to add a little bit more red to it. And you may find that you need to kind of mix in a little bit more yellow to get it right where you want it. Again, it's about playing with the color to get it just right. Okay, so here I've made a red orange. Next, I have my next tertiary color is orange and yellow. So I have a little bit of yellow already mixed. I'm gonna add some orange to it. And this is gonna be my yellow orange. My next color is mixing green and yellow. So I'm going to clean this yellow up real quick. And we're going to make yellow green or chartreuse kind of color. It's a really fun color to use when you're painting. Chartreuse for you. And then next we have blue and green. So we're going to take that blue color, put it on the side here. Mix our green. This is one of my favorite colors to use. So once you learn how to make these colors, you can kind of play with what else you add to them. You know, if you want to add more blue to them, or you can even try mixing some of the other colors to see what you create. Next, we're going to do the blue violet. So I have a little bit of blue. Mix up here. And I'm going to grab some of that violet that I made. Just snag a little bit more red. This is a really good color to use as an alternative to black. I like to use indigo rather than black. If you've ever taken a class from me, I tend to do that. I think it's more interesting than using black. And then the last one I'm going to do here is the red and the violet. Mix a little red on the side here. That violet. And get a pretty red-violet color. And then I'll go ahead and grab. So that is how you make your basic color wheel. If you're interested in learning more about color, I would love to create some more videos on ones that you might have questions about. I may do some later on how to use colors when you're designing a space and things like that. So if those are things that you might be interested in, I would be very happy to share. But I hope that you will practice creating and learning a little bit more about how colors are made, what goes into colors. And I can't wait to see what you do. I'd love to see if you'd post them for me.